Our next guest skated in more than almost 1,100 games in the NHL, I should say. He captured a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2009 as the director of player development. He was the first ever captain of the Nashville Predators, an original Florida Panther, and he's in his fourth season now as general manager of the New Jersey Devils. The DFO Rundown is pleased to welcome to the podcast Tom Fitzgerald. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Frank. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us here. And your team, maybe, I guess, a couple rocky games to start. And then since then, you guys have been looking really good. What do you like about the start for your team this season?
Well, I actually thought we had a really good training camp. I thought I sensed and was told like the vibe in the locker room with the new additions that we made and the maturity of our younger players, just taking that next step maturity-wise. It just was a no nonsense type of training camp. I thought every part of our game was worked on daily. It showed in the exhibition games, whether it was a younger team or an older team. Felt like going into the start of the season, everybody really felt good about where we're at. And, we can break down the Flyer game, the Detroit game anyway. At the end of the day, we didn't get the 2 points, but didn't feel that bad about our game, and just stayed with it. And you can see right now is the belief in the room and belief in the system and the belief in each other. And there's really a connection between all the players and the coaching staff, which is good to see.
Is that different, the connection, you think, between maybe some years past with your group?
I think so. Again, I think that's the new blood that you brought in, some old blood out, and then the maturity of these young pillars that we have. Jack and Nico and Jesper Bratt, to really understand, like, okay, it's time to take the next step. Why not now for them? Because we've added some help. I think from our goaltending out, like I said, goaltending was very good in training camp. So we felt good going into it, but really felt the strength was our decor. When you can add a John Marino and a Brendan Smith, and you have young players like Kevin Ball jumping up and making our team, you've got the depth. Dougie's settled in as one of our core guys back there, and Graves and Siegenthaler just round out what we needed. More defensive stalwarts, but we're bigger, we're more mobile, and we close on teams quicker. And that was emphasized. When I talk about connected, it's really connected on the ice. Where our D want to stand up and hold lines, but we need the back pressure from our forwards that have really done a good job, and that there, eliminates high danger scoring chances. So we've been very consistent there, and I think we moved the puck well. We are a fast team with our legs, but I also think we move pucks fast. I think we think fast, we move pucks fast, and we just turn things around and attack on the offense.
You mentioned the idea of sticking with it, even though the first two games maybe weren't necessarily scoreboard wise what you wanted. We were seeing lots of different reactions in lots of different markets to start the year. And to me, it speaks to the pressure that every team faces to get off to a good start. When you have someone like Miles Wood, who's been there for a while, comes out and says what he says, what's your reaction as a manager?
Oh, I was real good with that. I was fine with it. I love the fact that he spoke from his heart. It was generic. I mean, it wasn't generic. It really was authentic, and I had zero problems with it. Those are things that I think as professional athletes and teammates, you got to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the same question: Are we doing the right things? Are we committed to one another? Are we committed to a system? Are we committed to having each other's back? Because that does really help pave a way to winning hockey games. And I think it may have opened some guys' eyes, which again, I encourage it. I applaud it because we're seeing results from maybe that one comment.
Well, and I mean, it probably goes a long way in that it helps set the tone for the season too, right? I'm sick of losing. I want to be on a team that's successful. It kind of, everyone sort of falls in line after hearing something like that, no?
Absolutely. And I think what it also tells you is individuals turn themselves over to the team, meaning this is my role. I'm going to do it the best of my ability. This is my part. in helping this team work. And not everybody has the same equal part, but your part is no less important than the bigger parts on the team. And that's where we're seeing everybody. We're a 4-line team. We roll our 4 lines. Ice time will vary shift to shift. I think you're seeing 3 sets of D going over the boards consistently. We really pride ourselves on the depth in that we are going to be a 4-line team, and we can play a Mike McLeod and Nate Bastian and Miles Wood against other teams' top lines to offset Nico or even Jack's line. So we really do pride ourselves on that. And I think, again, it's individuals turning themselves over to the team and what's best for the team.
Everyone in this business manages differently. Everyone has different sort of career paths, resumes, experiences. Being a former captain in this league, does that help you maybe in terms of getting a sense of feel for things as the season goes along?
Well, I think really from the get-go, I think we needed to maybe shift our mindsets as a locker room and what that culture is going to be like. Where's the accountability? Who's going to drive it? What the practices look like? I talked about commitment, and you could define that in many different ways, but having that no nonsense culture and the standards are a lot higher now. Expectations are higher now. We put that on ourselves internally. And I think what we're seeing, there's a reason why I named Nico captain at an early age, because of the experiences that I went through as a captain, and they were hard. That first year, we had a short runway, that shortened season. I felt, let him understand what being a captain is here. So the following season, which was last year, and he was injured, he'd become a better captain and understand it. He really is growing into that leadership role. He's got some help around him when you can surround yourself or surround our young players with players like Dougie Hamilton and Palat, John Marino, Brendan Smith, Eric Holla, guys like that to come in and help. You're seeing Nico really take that major step in leadership, and it's showing in his game as well.
Is there anything you can point to with Nico that might highlight something like that? Like how do you know that process is coming along?
Well, I think creating those standards, those high standards that you expect out of yourself, that you should be able to expect out of the guy across the room from you or next to you or diagonal from you, and really pushing one another and not being afraid to say the truth like Miles Wood did, to really get the most out of all our players and understand that it's not okay to just be, okay with being average, or in our case, in the past couple of years, below average and not very good. It's not what we want to be. And I think Nico has really grown to understand it, and the respect that he gets from his peer groups is incredible. I think that's a big part of it too, and confidence. He's more confident in his own game. He's healthy, knock on wood, and that parlays into being, the type of captain that he's going to be and is.
You mentioned your young core, and yes, they do have some of the support pieces now to help take that next step. But when you see Jack Hughes on the ice and what he's accomplished for your team, just going back the last couple of years now, it's so weird with all these shortened seasons. His last 82 games, 79 points he's put up. What kind of strides have you seen in his game? Obviously, he did it last year, but to continue on and continue to want more this year.
Like all players, they mature not only emotionally, but they mature physically. They understand the league better, understand what they can get away with and what they can't. I think with Jack, he's just, he's an uber talented player, but he's uber competitive. He's so competitive. It's incredible. And he just pushes himself, and he really is a driver out there. So you knew what you saw in the shortened season a couple of years ago was going to be something of, okay, there it is. We saw snapshots of it. And then last year, being over a point a game, you talked about his last 82 games and where he's at statistically. You knew it was coming. I think right now he's really rounding out his game, whether it's Lindy help using him in some defensive zone, 6 starts. Last night he was on the penalty kill for maybe the last 20 seconds, but you know what? He's getting those responsibilities, and understanding clock management, when you can actually, make plays through the neutral zone when we're up by a goal or two, or the score is even, like the Colorado game. I just thought he played extremely well, or blocking shots, small things like that when you can, the things that we talk about are, what do we celebrate? And how do we do that? What do we want to tolerate versus, accept, where, we don't want to accept baseball caps at dinner time, but really it's all about where the culture's going. And Jack's been a huge part of that. His play in itself it continues to grow.
So a lot of people around the league noticed Jesper Bratt last season with the year that he had, but this year he's really catching some other people that may have been some casual observers. When you look at the start that he's had, what makes him special, and how big of a part of your team is he moving forward in terms of that sort of young core nucleus that you've put together here?
Well, I've always said Jesper's going to be part of this young core moving forward. He's a big part of what we're trying to do, a building block that we want to continue to build off and surround. What he's done thus far it's not surprising, because he's very talented. He's very hungry. He's very competitive. He prides himself on the extra work that he puts in every single day, not just game days, in the weight room, after practice, last guy off the ice type of player. He's just passionate about hockey, and he's passionate about to be the best player he can be. So not a surprise at all. We're so happy that he's part of our group, and want this kid to be part of our group long term.
So you've got a number of guys that are signed to long-term deals, including Jack. You go through the process with Jesper Bratt this summer. He ends up on a 1-year deal, obviously off to the start that he has. Is that one of those situations where, are you comfortable with this moving forward? Would you have liked to have had it done long-term? How does that work?
Well, we tried. I know Jesper's, what he would have liked as well was a long-term deal, as it was for us. Our ownership group was committed to that. Frank, you and I talked about this in the summer. But finding, common ground was something that we just couldn't find at the time. Arbitration is a tool for the player to use. We still control the player for another year after this year. So we understand what the next phase is. But signing him long-term and being part of this core moving forward and longer down the road is really our goal. And we'll start talking again, in January when we're allowed to talk, and to see where things are at, and go from there.
You used an interesting phrase earlier when we first started talking about Dougie Hamilton, and you said he's settling in. What'd you see last year, and what differences do you see this year?
Well, Dougie's a committed person. Like he committed himself to New Jersey in the off season. Like he lived here. He was there for our marketing team if they needed him to make appearances, things like that. So when I say settling in, he really enjoys living in New Jersey because he lives there year round. And being part of the Devils. I think last year he got off to a fantastic start with us, got hurt. And that just kind of really pulled him back a bit until the end of the year. And, at that point we were where we were in the standings. He had a great camp. He's a guy that we've made a commitment to, that we know what his upside is, and we know the offense that he can bring. I think you're seeing him play better defensively. You see him holding lines better. He obviously can go back to pucks, retrieve, and use his legs to skate out, but he's taking hits to make plays. And we're not spending much time on our own end because of the way we play. Dougie's committed to that, and you could see him how settled. That's what I meant by being settled.
Yeah, he just looks more comfortable, right? And I guess part of that too is you go through this process, new home, new faces, new team. Mm-hmm. You got an injury, you're out of the lineup for a bit. All those things kind of add up to maybe a season that not just for Dougie, but for your team as a whole, maybe didn't go the way everyone wanted.
You're right. And, I lived it where you're trying to impress everybody around you, not only your teammates or your coaches or your management or even the fans for that matter, but you're always, you're trying to show them that this was the right decision. And sometimes that we call it squeezing the stick, sometimes less is more until you really get settled in. And we could name many players like that. You come in on deadlines and it doesn't work out like you do, but you may have a guy who's got an extra year in his contract and you see him settle in come training camp. So it is, I think using the word settled is probably appropriate because you're seeing his games at a really good level. The team is winning, and he's just going about his business day in, day out.
So you said you're spending less time in your own end, being pretty efficient, getting the puck out through the first 10 games. How much has John Marino helped with that?
A lot. He has helped a lot, and not just John. You look at now the depth that we have in all three pairs. We've got guys who can skate. We've got guys who can move pucks. We've got guys who can, be heavy at the net front. But understand they support one another. All our pairings, with Dougie and Siegs, with Johnny and Ryan Graves, Sevy and Smith, and or Baller goes in there. They all seem to be on the same page, and we're not wasting much energy down there. We're making our plays, we're supporting, and we're coming out quick. And you got to give our forwards some credit as well, because they're doing the jobs once the puck gets into their hands, getting pucks out.
I've always been advocating that we should change the name of the sport from hockey to goalie, because you can't win if you don't have one. Your goaltending, obviously Vanacek comes in. He's looked pretty good to start. Has he been what you thought he might be?
Yeah, he had a very good camp. I think the Detroit game, like our first game in Philadelphia, I'm sure the goalies would have liked to have a couple of those goals back. But they absolutely are settling in. Their work habits in practice are incredible. I think our goalie coach is doing a great job with both of these guys. The problem we're having right now is, okay, when does one go in? When's the other go in? We don't want somebody sitting too long. And are we overthinking things? We just run a guy X amount of games. We just stick to a schedule. Those are things that we're going through right now to really maximize our goaltenders.
So what's the status of Andre Palat at the moment?
Andre's being evaluated as we speak right now for a lower body injury, and we are supposed to hear at some point today, if not in the morning, what the next steps are for him, and go from there. You can't replace a guy like that. I mean, we brought him in for a reason. We wanted a championship mindset with our players, so bringing somebody in with that experience of winning championships and losing championships was important. And I can't stress enough the impact he's made on his new teammates, on how to conduct yourself game in, game out. He's a guy we're not going to be able to replace, but we do feel good about where our depth's at. And when he's ready to get back in our lineup, when he's healthy enough, we'll welcome him back with open arms.
No doubt. It's been interesting to get a look into the mindset of the New Jersey Devils to start. My last question for you, Tom, how much hockey do you watch? Like you've got three boys, not just, your job as GM of the Devils, but how do you keep track of your boys as they're all over the place? One in the NHL, one in the AHL, and one in the USHL. Yeah,
it's good. And my son, Jack, he stopped playing. He's living at home and he's taking care of my dog when my wife comes and visits me. So we're grateful for that, but it is hard. You know what? Modern day technology right now with all the different apps that that are at your fingertips to watch. That's all you can do. Like Casey, I'll go watch him play tonight. I don't even know who they're playing, but I'll be able to watch him play. Ryan's not back playing yet with Lehigh because of his double hip surgery last year. He's on the mend right now. And Brendan, I'll be able to watch on the USHL app or the Flow app. My wife goes and visits. I feel bad for her. She's all over the map going to visit. But you know what? I'll try to see Brendan here a couple times this year before he goes off to the University of New Hampshire next year. And Casey's doing his thing, and just Ryan is I just want him to get healthy first and foremost. But it's been fun. It's really it is pretty cool when you can just flip on a game and watch your kids and actually really enjoy it and not critique it. I'm a fan of my kids, and I enjoy watching them play.
But maybe not so. Maybe a little more nerve-wracking though. If Buffalo's playing New Jersey.
No, not anymore. It was very nerve-wracking. Prior to drafts. I have two boys who were drafted. Two boys who were evaluated by the current clubs that I was with, Pittsburgh and here in New Jersey, and that's not the easiest thing in the world. And you want people who are evaluating your own children to make sure they're doing their jobs as well. But that was nerve-wracking. And then it's now the draft, and now the hard work starts. Are they putting enough effort into earn a contract. Then you earn a contract, and I would say the easiest thing for me has been them being pro hockey players, because they're either going to make it or they're not. And they're not going to, it's not going to be from a lack of effort. But I've really enjoyed it, and I've been a lot calmer post pro than pre-post
So
pro.
you've lived it and
Pre-pro.
you've been in these players' shoes, but does it help you as a manager relating to the kids that you have in your locker room, knowing the kid mindset of your own children?
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I also go back to my playing days of, you know what, patting the back goes a long way. Hey, good game. Good job. That's how to work. That goes a long way. It did for me. And then I think about those pats on the back and those words that could be used to my own boys, and think, geez, that would go a long way. So yeah, I'm very visible around my locker room. I'm there. I wish I had an office in the locker room, but I don't. But I really enjoy being around all our players. I think I'm someone they can come up and talk to. I can relate to them. I hope, and I think they know I can relate to them. I'm not only an ex-player that has lived in their skates, but I'm a dad too, who understands what my own boys are going through. So I'm just trying to enjoy every single day.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, we really appreciate having you, and you can tell just that insight that you can get from the connections that you have on your team and the way this season's starting. It's really interesting that you got a front row seat to see it all come together.
I appreciate it, Frank.
Thanks a lot for joining us on the DFO Rundown, Tom.